Hello and welcome to another show of the Money Honey podcast, where we bring to you women in finance, construction, and property. It is an environment of women supporting women, empowering one another, but also giving you the inspiration and the hope of what is possible in these industries that are so-called, male dominated industries. But I'm on a mission to find the best women, the leaders, the speakers, the ones that are really making moves in this industry to inspire you so that you can be getting ready for work, or you're on your commute, or you're winding down for the day and you just want to be surrounded by ambitious and fierce leaders in this space. And speaking of ambitious people, I am bringing to you Alice Williams today from Ultimate Finance, who I've known for many years now in different guises. So I want her to tell the story. So let's bring her on. Alice, hello, are you there?
Yes, I am. I am. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Alice, for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you about your journey because I've seen you through it. I've seen you evolve just on as much as I'm sure you've seen me go through mine. But I remember you from when I was a business development manager working for a bridging lender, a specialist lender. And I remember coming to your offices, talking to you guys about my proposition. So you were a broker at the time. And of course, I wanted you to use me. I wanted you to use my lender where I was working. And that's how we met. So tell me about what you've done since.
Yeah, it's crazy, really. I think you really met me just as I'd started out working for a broker. So, really long story short, I did economics as my bachelor's degree, went into banking for a couple of years, found that quite tedious, very desk based, very, very admin focused, didn't really match my personality. So I joined the brokerage that you obviously came in to see quite regularly. And I think you were probably one of the first BDMs that I ever met. And then I was a broker for 5 years or so. So you'll really have seen me go from not having a clue what a brokerage does, learning the reins, developing kind of my knowledge and understanding of all the different finance products. I really specialized in bridging and development. So obviously did a lot with you guys. You guys had a product that really suited us at the time. Um, and I grew so much in confidence and things whilst I was a broker. I'll go a little bit more into that in a second. But then yeah, last year now, gosh, that's scary. I took the leap from a broker to a lender to see how it works on the other side, and basically for a new challenge.
Yeah, I think I know exactly how you feel, which is exactly what I did, pretty much in the same fashion. So when I started out in financial services, it was a complete accident. My bachelor's degree was in something completely different. I studied languages, but because I'm good at speaking one language, it means I can't stop speaking in any other language. So it felt natural to do sales and to do events and sponsorship and things like that. So because of my business development background and sales and account management, I fell into financial services where, being a BDM was like the thing, or is the thing, right? There's so much opportunity if you're a business development manager. And I fell into the specialist lending world. So what is that like? Because I know what it's like because I've been in it, but what's it like being a woman in specialist lending or in broking or in financial services, because this industry is often known as the male dominated industry, and then people like you and I go in there. How do we thrive? How do you get through it? How did you learn your way through it?
I don't know whether it was an age thing or a female thing, or whether it was a combination of both, and probably partnered, being completely honest, with a lack of confidence. But when I started out in broking, it was a scary world. You went to events and I think this is a me problem, but it comes with being a female, and I'm sure a lot of your female listeners would relate. A form of imposter syndrome almost. You walk into a room, you're younger than everybody. I'd say 90% of most rooms when you went to construction events or anything like that were male. And being taken seriously was so much harder. And I don't think that that was just the communities that I was entering. I think I was as much of a blocker for myself as others' attitudes were. You obviously got people with poor attitudes. I think every female in a male dominated sector can spout off a number of examples where they've had people come up to them and comment on their looks rather than what they do. They've had comments where maybe you've gone with a male counterpart and the other males have come up, shaken your male counterpart's hand, and then assumed that you're the administrator that he's brought along for a day out or something. I don't think that's unique to me. But as I grew in confidence and started telling myself that I was good enough to be in those rooms and advise those people in those rooms, it was a real breakthrough, because the more seriously I took myself and the less apprehensive and anxious really I was to get on stage and say, no, I'm here, I'm a professional, I know what I'm doing, you should really be listening to me. They did start to sit up and listen. So I think it is twofold. It's as much internal blockers as external blockers. You're always going to get numpties, regardless of age, gender, anything, all those kind of things. But if you tell yourself that you're good enough, even when you get those blockers, they're not blockers. You roll your eyes, think, what's it? And then you just crack on and focus on the people that will deal with you, will appreciate your advice, will appreciate your guidance. And there is so many of those people about. You just don't need to waste energy on the people that won't listen to you because they're missing out.
I love that. That is exactly my way of thinking. I had a choice. Listen to them, let them tear me down, whether male or female, or listen to myself because we're tearing ourselves down. So actually, sometimes people weren't doing anything to me. They weren't saying anything at all. They just shook my hand. But my internal blockers, as you call them, made me think, oh, they just shaking my hand because they think I'm pretty. Oh, they so you just start questioning yourself and doubting your own ability and your own actual credibility. And I really love that what you said is that once you started taking yourself seriously, everyone else started to listen. And that is exactly that. What an amazing advice, right? Bang, straight in. First 8 minutes of the show. I think, guys, if you've got your pens and notepads ready, I would be writing that down that, you need to start taking yourself seriously before others can start to listen to you and respect you the way you respect yourself. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that because I think a lot of people relate. I certainly do, having grown up in this industry the way I went through it, which was specialist lending. Started out as a broker, and now I want to move on to what I did and what you did, which is to go off to a lender. So you went from broking to lending, which is exactly what I did. I then went to work for a lender to become a BDM, and that's what you're doing now. So why the move, and how did you find that?
So it was more wanting to change challenges that I was facing. I think I did a lot as a broker. I did videos, I developed courses with potential clients completely free, did a lot of education work for others and developing my own understanding and my own knowledge. But being relatively young in the market still, I fully appreciated that there's a lot more for me to learn. And was very aware that as a broker, you learn how to get deals done, but you don't necessarily have that full appreciation and understanding for what goes on behind the scenes within a lender. It's very easy I say easy, once you know what you're doing, you know how to push deals to completion as a broker, chasing lenders, chasing everybody under the sun, essentially. You're or I was to an extent, a professional nag, basically, when you were a
Yeah.
broker. But when you move over to the lending side, you have to have so much more appreciation for the risk management side of things, liaising with underwriters, pulling multiple stakeholders in, where you are essentially that middleman between the broker and underwriting and the other key stakeholders, really, with legals, valuation, and all of that. And mediating between all the parties has proven to be such a good challenge. And I've learned so much in the 6 months that I've been working for a lender that I really feel like I can service people far better than I could, because working for a lender, and you'll appreciate this, where you've previously worked for a brokerage, you can fully relate to what the brokers are going through. Brokers get a really hard time from some clients, especially when things are going wrong by no fault of anybody's. And having that empathy there for the broker, for the position that the broker's in, when they are telling you, look, I'm getting an absolute earful from X client, and then being able to utilize that empathy you have for that broker and try and discuss the issues, I guess, with the key stakeholders like the legals, like the underwriters, to try and come to a solution. It is a whole new challenge, but it's just made me feel reinvigorated. It's something new, where you're learning something new every single day again. And I'm so into learning, and I never want to stop learning. And I've just graduated actually from my master's in real estate finance and investment. And I've sworn to myself that the only way I'm going back into any kind of formal education is potentially a PhD, when I've maxed out every other way of learning. But the job move, I'm just learning so much more. And I've just got my spark back. I think it takes a lot to realize when you've lost your spark. And I had. And now I feel like I've got that back. And I'm sure it's as a result of the new challenges, the learning again, the move geographically as well. It's just reinvigorated me.
Oh my God, that is amazing. I'm so happy for you because learning and development is one of my key values. I learnt very quickly in life that yes, I was a bookworm and I loved studying. I was a little bit of a geek at school and I went to uni and I really loved, doing homework. I know, like it's just what I loved. I loved it. But I realized that that was because I was setting myself challenges, learning them, and the homework and the exams were, don't get me wrong, I don't love exams, but that was a measure of how I developed. And when you come into the real world and you start working, sometimes those measures and the development and that self-development is put to one side because you have to think of targets. And that doesn't really feel like a development. That doesn't really feel like a fulfilling skill that you are learning and mastering. Just because you're making a target or because you're meeting a target does not really feel fulfilling. So yeah, learning on the job and feeling like you are expanding your brain is really rare to find. So I'm really happy you found it. So given that you are so happy where you are, tell us, where are you? What do you do? Tell us a little bit about the lender and yeah, what is there to love? Why do you love it?
So I work for a lender called Ultimate Finance, and we have a bridging arm and a business finance arm. Now I'm a relationship director, which essentially is a BDM role. On the bridging side, bridging is what I love from day one. I loved the pace of it. I loved everything about bridging, really, from brokering. So knew that if I was going to move to a lender, I wanted to go to one that did bridging. So I'm a bridging relationship director. I deal, I'd say 99.7% with brokers. I much prefer dealing with brokers than clients. That was the other nice move from brokering. Dealing with brokers over borrowers at the moment is a pleasure, to be completely honest. And it's all non-regulated bridging that we do. So it's all investment bridging. We do anything from £100,000 up to 3.5-ish million. So again, a really nice lending bracket that we sit within, because you can cover anything from the HMO conversions through to the larger development exits where you're refinancing an entire development site. And it does mean having a bracket that size, that the assets you're dealing with are very changeable as well, which again increases that learning, improves the changeable nature of what you're doing day to day, which is equally as important, because I think once you stagnate and you find yourself doing same thing day after day after day, you can get quite robotic and you can again lose that motivation. So my job on a daily basis is a little bit bonkers to an extent. So as an RD at Ultimate, you don't just deal with the new inquiries. You will get new inquiries. You obviously ping out, but then you also do the application forms when they're returned to you. You essentially write your full credit paper. You then have to present it to underwriting. The brokers that deal with Ultimate don't necessarily deal directly with underwriting. So everything comes through me. So at the moment, I've got deals where I'm liaising with solicitors, with underwriting, because we're hoping to complete tomorrow. But I'm also getting new emails from brokers saying, I've got this deal. What can you do? Do you think you can support it? Which again, that scope of work that I'm doing keeps everything so new, so fresh, and so exciting. I need a good to-do list to keep on top of it. I never thought, I'd have an actual physical diary until I started work here. But it's just so much good fun.
That's really great. That's so positive. I mean, I loved my BDM days. I have to say, when I was a BDM, even though I worked for a lender that dealt with many, many challenging deals, because it wasn't any vanilla deals, everything was like messing with my brain. Every time I would read a client's email, a broker's email, I'd be like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with this? It was always really quite complex. And that was the exciting part. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But my final question for you, Alice, is what change would you like to see in the industry? How would you like to see the financial services industry develop, change, transform? What would you like to add or take away? You can answer that question as you like.
I'm going to give two answers. I think there's two key changes that I would love to see in the industry. So the first one is true equality. And I mean that in terms of attitude from others and internal attitudes. I think sometimes it's very easy to make sweeping statements and say that all males in this industry are X, Y, and Z. They're a flipping nightmare because a couple of bad eggs give the overall population a very, very bad name. There are so many men out there who are all for treating people with absolute equality. And I do mean equality, not positive inequality almost. So everybody should be dealt with because they're good at what they do, not because they're men, not because they're female and more females need to be given an opportunity, just because they are good at what they do. And that's absolute nirvana, I think, for this
Yeah.
industry is regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of anything, if you're good, you get the opportunity. If you're bad, you don't. So that's the first change that I really do want to see in the industry. And the second one is a bit of a cleanup of the industry. So my dissertation for my master's was focused on the behaviours of individuals in the non-regulated market. So the lack of regulation means that there's huge sorts of gifts, gratuities, incentives that are thrown around within the industry to encourage new business, to thank people for new business. And some of that is absolutely, absolutely fine. I've got no issue with certain aspects of that. But I do think that there are certain areas of the industry that are still like the wild, wild west. And I do think that that needs cleaning up, because that is doing wrong by the brokers who are honourable and are sticking to the morals that I would like to see reflected across the whole industry. But equally, there are individuals acting outside of that. And I'm actually working on a working paper at the moment off the back of my dissertation that I'm hoping to go and present alongside the university that I did my master's through. And I'm hoping, and who knows if people will actually listen, one person trying to make a massive change is a big challenge, but I can believe I can at least give it a flipping good go. So once I finalise that paper, I do want to present it to, well, firstly, the industry body, but NACFB. And then the desire is to try and get as much of the industry on board as possible, potentially through a kind of treating customers fairly charter or something, just to level out that playing field and ensure that all of us work for the borrowers and that the right thing is being done by the borrowers, even in a market that isn't regulated. That is the goal on that side of things.
Well, big goals and big changes do start with small actions. And even though you might feel alone right now because you think you're just one person writing a paper and how is everyone going to listen to one person, you'll start to you notice that once you start sharing that and once you start spreading that news, you'll find people will flock to you and will be attracted to the same mission as you. The key though is sharing it, because if no one knows that this is happening, or if no one knows that this is um, a project that you're working on, then we're not going to be able to jump on it. So I will certainly welcome you back with open arms once that paper is ready and once your project is live. If you wanted to come back and speak about it to this audience, I'm sure many people would be interested in seeing how that develops. So in the meantime, Alice, I would just ask you if there is someone of a listener, a member of the audience that wants to connect with you and wishes to reach out, how best should they do that?
Absolutely LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the way of the professional social media future, especially when professionals are connecting with professionals. So yeah, LinkedIn, and I've seen that you've tagged me already in like the LinkedIn post linking this. So yeah, just drop me a connection / message on LinkedIn, and happy to connect with anyone and everyone really.
Brilliant. So, guys, it's already on my LinkedIn profile. I've tagged Alice. So if you just want to click on her name and send her a connection request, please do so. This episode will be released, and the link to this episode will also be made available on social media so that you can comment and connect. And if you really enjoyed it, and if there's a message in this audio that you've listened to that you feel is actually going to be able to benefit someone in your world, maybe it's a colleague, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a family member who wants to get into this industry or is struggling with imposter syndrome or self-identity or taking themselves seriously. There's been so many good nuggets in here that you could share with them. And on that note, we call that positive pollination. What that means, I don't know if you've heard that concept, Alice, when I've been talking about it, is that in order to create that ripple effect, what you're saying, that there's just me here on my own talking to women in finance, what's that going to do? But the only way we can make an impact is if we spread, if we pollinate and actually spread that out to other people that we know. So Alice, you have a challenge. All my guests who are on the show get one nomination per guest, right? So one opportunity to start that positive pollination. So if you could have anyone on the show, right? If you could nominate anybody that you would love to hear from, and maybe binge on 20 minutes of them talking in your ear, who would that be?
Do you know what? At the moment, it's got to be Kim McGinley. I've followed her story for so many years, and that sounds like so stalkerish. But seeing what she's done, how she's grown Vibe, how she shares the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows. It's really inspirational. And it is one of those where you kind of lurk from the background. I have actually spoken to her. I don't just sit there and go, "Ooh, what's Kim up to today?" But she's just such an inspirational lady. She'd be brilliant for others to listen to be honest.
So you'll be pleased to hear she is coming on the show. We are going to be having Kim, because she's a great friend of mine, well, a digital friend. And then we finally met online face to face and we had a quick hug. She is due to come on the show. When exactly, we need to schedule, because as you can imagine, Kim is a incredibly busy woman. So yeah, that I will let her know that you have nominated her. She'll be so she'll blush. I know she seems really confident and everything, but I'm sure she'll feel like, it's so much pressure. But she would be great. And so I am excited to have her on the show very soon. But in the meantime, Alice, I want to thank you so much for being such an amazing guest. Thank you again. And I can't wait to see how your journey unravels.